Welcome to Organizing Content Overview, Sequencing Content. This video is part of a three-part series. So if you haven't seen the course design plan portion of this series yet, I suggest you click on the course design plan link within this video here and go check that one out first. Otherwise, in this particular video, we'll be looking at sequencing. So sequencing is the process of determining the most appropriate path of instruction, activity, and evaluation to best address the learning objectives. So basically it's a matter of what should come first, what should come second. The good news is that as teachers, as instructors, we tend to do this fairly natively. We do this without really thinking about it, but what should be taught first, what should be taught second. But when we're doing a whole course design plan, it sometimes slips our mind a little bit, and it's just a good thing to keep in mind while you're doing it, what's the best sequence, and while you're putting the whole course design plan together. So again, we're looking to deliver the content in a logical order. We want to teach addition and subtraction before we move on to calculus. It's a fairly simple sort of concept. Common sense sort of thing, but again, it's something that we really want to make sure we're thinking about when we are putting a whole course together in our course design plan. But we want to start with the broader concepts and move into the more specialized ones. It's that macro to micro sort of move. So again, looking at our course design plan from the first video, we've already started doing this a little bit as we sort of start putting stuff into this design plan, right? What should be in Module 1, what should be in Module 2. So what are the different ways that we might want to think about our sequencing? Well, there's a number of different ways that have been suggested to create your sequencing structure, world-related, inquiry-related. The most common two that you're going to find, or the most often you're going to sort of default to, is probably learning related and concept related. Which concepts are sort of built on each other, and learning related organizes information that builds on prior knowledge. There's a prerequisite knowledge of some sort, and concept related is much the same. Which big concepts are we going to teach first and then move into smaller concepts? But as you can see, there's a number of different sequencing structures that have been identified in curriculum design. So again, you may just want to be aware of these, and if they do fit into what it is that you're teaching, maybe that's a better way to structure your sequencing. So just some tips around it. Each objective may have a different sequencing strategy. So don't expect every module to sequence the same once we get into that sort of micro view of how you're sequencing things in modules. It can vary depending on a lot of different factors. So just, don't get stuck into one way of doing it. If it doesn't fit, you're sort of trying to figure out why. Some have an obvious sequencing, nature of procedure and things like that. Some really don't have an obvious way of sequencing them. So you're just going to do your best to try and figure out what the most logical sort of sequence would be for the topics and for the content that you're trying to get across. If your module is primarily concerned with teaching a procedure, that tends to make things a lot easier. There's usually a sequence of steps that you want to take. So sometimes those polytechnical type of courses or things are easier to sequence, but certainly not always. Also, it helps to know what type of learning is taking place. What kind of knowledge is this? It may determine how you sequence things and how you try and go about sequencing your content or your modules or your topics and things like that. So again, if you're having trouble coming up with a sequencing strategy or a sequencing structure, think about the type of learning that's taking place, and that may help you to come up with a good strategy. If you haven't looked at the chunking video yet, you can go ahead and click on the chunking link here in the bottom of this video and check that out as well. And that is just one of the other procedures we're going to go through in order to get this course design plan going.